The storm had rolled in without warning, thick sheets of rain pelting the diner windows as if the sky itself were grieving. Inside, where the morning crowds usually hummed with chatter, only one man sat alone with a plate he could barely afford. Ethan Deckard, a single father with tired eyes and calloused hands, had finally saved enough to buy a real breakfast after weeks of living off instant noodles. But before he could take the first bite, he saw her. She stumbled through the diner doors like a ghost blown in by the storm, soaking wet, trembling, hair plastered to her cheeks, a woman whose despair filled the room before she spoke a single word. Her clothes were torn, her lips pale, and when the waitress asked what she needed, she whispered so faintly it was almost swallowed by the rain. "Help, please." If you believe kindness still matters in this world and that second chances can save a life, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to Unbroken Truths. Your support helps us bring more true-to-life stories that inspire hope. Also, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from right now. Ethan didn't know why he stood up. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe desperation mirrored his own struggles. Or maybe it was the memory of his little daughter Lily, who once said, "Daddy, helping someone is like giving them your sunshine." Whatever the reason, Ethan walked toward the stranger with his plate, still warm in his hands. He set it gently in front of her. "Here," he said softly, though worry tugged at him. "You need this more than I do." The woman's fingers shook as she reached out. She didn't just look hungry. She looked heartbroken. She devoured the food as tears escaped the corners of her eyes, mixing with raindrops that still clung to her skin. That tight knot in Ethan's chest grew heavier. He sat across from her, not touching anything, simply watching to make sure she didn't collapse. Her name, she eventually murmured, was Natasha. She didn't offer more. Not where she came from, not what had happened, not why she looked like someone running for her life. But Ethan didn't push. He knew what silence looked like after trauma. He had lived in it once after Lily's mother passed away and left him drowning in bills and responsibilities he wasn't prepared for. Natasha finished eating but didn't leave. She sat staring at her empty plate as if afraid that moving would erase what little safety she found. The storm outside calmed, but her breathing remained shallow, uneven. Ethan called Lily's school to say he'd be late picking her up. Then he offered Natasha his jacket, though it left him shivering. When she tried to refuse, he simply wrapped it around her shoulders anyway. Her eyes widened in surprise, as though kindness was something she hadn't seen in years. Over the next hour, the two sat there in the quiet hum of the diner. Natasha slowly thawed, her posture easing, her expression softening, though fear still flickered behind her eyes. She told Ethan she had no money, no phone, no belongings, except the small camera she clutched like a lifeline. He offered to drive her somewhere safe, but she grew tense and shook her head violently. She didn't explain, and Ethan didn't pry. Instead, he gave her his leftover change so she could get another meal later, even though that meant he'd need to skip dinner. She whispered, "Thank you," in a voice that cracked like glass. When she stood to leave, Ethan felt an inexplicable dread, like he was watching someone disappear into a darkness he couldn't pull them from. She hesitated at the door, looking back just once, her eyes shimmering with an emotion he couldn't name. Then she vanished into the easing daylight. Ethan never saw her again. Not that day, not that week, not even that month. But the consequences of that morning began unfolding sooner than he realized. 3 weeks later, Ethan received a letter. Sleek, formal, with embossed lettering he has only ever seen in movies. His stomach knotted as he stared at it. Lawyers didn't send letters to struggling single dads without a reason, and rarely a good one. He feared debt collectors, lawsuits, something he did wrong without knowing. He opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a short message. "Mr. Deckard, we request your presence at the Corleone & Associates firm for a matter of urgent and personal importance regarding Miss Natasha Rackham." Natasha, the woman from the diner, the one who had disappeared. He read the letter again and again. Then he sat on his couch with his head in his hands, trying to make sense of it. Why would lawyers be involved? Why him? Has something happened to her? Had she been in danger? Was he the last person to see her safe? His breath quickened with a rising sense of guilt and panic. That evening, After tucking Lily into bed, Ethan sat at their tiny kitchen table, staring at the letter under the flickering overhead light. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the distant sound of sirens outside. He thought about Natasha's face, the terror in her eyes, the way she'd clutched that camera like it was the only piece of herself she had left. Lily shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, her stuffed rabbit dragging behind her. "Daddy, why are you still awake?" Ethan quickly folded the letter. "Just thinking, sweetheart. Go back to bed." She climbed onto his lap instead, something she rarely did anymore now that she was in first grade and a big girl. But tonight, she wrapped her small arms around his neck. "Are you worried about money again?" she asked quietly. Ethan's heart cracked. 6 years old, and she already knew too much about struggle. "No, baby. Actually, I'm thinking about that lady I helped a few weeks ago. Remember, the one I told you about?" Lily nodded against his shoulder. "The sad one in the rain." "Yeah, her lawyers want to talk to me. Is she okay?" "I don't know yet." Lily pulled back to look at him with those big, earnest eyes that reminded him so much of her mother. "You should go, Daddy. Maybe she needs more sunshine." Ethan smiled despite himself. Maybe she does. The next morning, after dropping Lily off at school with promises to pick her up on time, Ethan took 2 buses across the city to a towering glass building that seemed to swallow daylight whole. Inside, he felt painfully out of place. Business suits, marble floors, polished chrome, and there he stood. Worn jeans, fraying jacket sleeves, hands rough from years of struggling to keep afloat. A receptionist with perfectly styled hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes directed him to the elevators. 19th floor. They're expecting you." The elevator ride felt like ascending into another world. Each floor that passed took him further from the life he knew, the life of overdue bills, dollar store dinners, and apartments where the heat only worked half the time. When the doors opened, an assistant led him to a quiet conference room overlooking the city. Ethan clenched his fists to stop his hands from shaking. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he could see the sprawl of buildings and streets where people like him lived, people who would never set foot in a place like this. Then, 2 attorneys entered. The older one was a distinguished woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes that seemed to measure everything. The younger was a man, probably early 30s, with the kind of polished confidence that came from never wondering where his next meal would come from. They placed a thick folder on the table in front of him. "Mr. Deckard," the older attorney began, her voice surprisingly gentle. "We represent Ms. Natasha Rackham." Ethan stiffened. "Is she okay?" "She is safe," the attorney replied carefully. "Thanks in large part to you." Relief crashed into him so suddenly he had to steady himself against the table, but confusion quickly followed. "I don't understand. Why am I here?" The lawyers exchanged a look, the kind of look that said they were about to turn someone's world upside down. The younger attorney slid a photograph from the folder toward him. It showed Natasha, but not the broken woman he met. This Natasha was radiant, dressed in elegant clothing, standing in front of what looked like a prestigious art gallery. Her smile was confident, her posture poised. She looked like she belonged in magazines, not rainstorms. Ethan blinked. This is her?" "Miss Rackham," the older attorney explained, "is a renowned photographer. Her work has been featured in galleries across 3 continents. She's also the sole heir to a substantial family trust established by her late parents." Ethan's mind reeled. The terrified woman clutching a camera in a diner was this. "But she looked homeless," he said quietly. "Terrified." "She was," the attorney said, her voice dropping. "Miss Rackham has been battling severe trauma following a violent confrontation with someone who attempted to exploit her work, and her former partner, who became obsessive, controlling. When she tried to leave, he became dangerous." Ethan felt his stomach turn. Did he hurt her? Not physically, but the psychological damage was profound. After she finally escaped him, she disappeared. She refused police protection, refused to access her trust fund, refused help from anyone who knew her. She simply ran. "But why?" Ethan asked. "If she had money, resources." "Trauma doesn't care about bank accounts," the younger attorney said. "When you're running from someone who knows everything about your life, sometimes the only safety is in becoming someone else entirely, someone invisible." The older attorney leaned forward. Mr. Deckard, when Miss Rackham had nothing, not even hope, you gave her food. You offered warmth. You treated her like a human being rather than a burden or a spectacle. Do you have any idea how rare that is? If this story is touching you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And don't forget to subscribe to Unbroken Truths for more stories that restore faith in humanity. Ethan swallowed hard. Anyone would have done the same. Most people didn't, she replied quietly. 37 people were in or near that diner that morning. Our investigator reviewed the security footage. 37 people saw her come in. You were the only one who helped. The weight of that settled over the room like snow. The older attorney opened the folder further and slid several papers toward Ethan. Miss Rackham instructed us to deliver this to you. She has gone to an undisclosed recovery center where she will remain until she can heal fully. She will not be reachable for some time. But before leaving, she wanted to ensure that the kindness you showed her is not forgotten. Ethan's brow furrowed. What is all this? The attorney offered a small smile. It is a full financial grant established in your name and your daughter's, enough to cover stable housing, childcare, and 3 years of living expenses while you pursue any career or education you wish. The room tilted. Miss Rackham said, and I quote, "He gave me a meal when I only felt like a ghost, so I want to give him back his future." Ethan's breath hitched. He shook his head. This can't be real. I didn't do anything to deserve. You gave hope to someone who had lost everything, the lawyer said softly. Sometimes that's worth more than you realize. Ethan's eyes burned and he looked away, overwhelmed. The thought that a single breakfast, something he could barely afford, had become the turning point in someone's life felt surreal. But the greater shock was what she had given back. Not just money, freedom, stability, a chance to give Lily the life she deserved. There's one more thing, the younger attorney said, pulling out a small envelope. She left you this. Inside was a handwritten note on cream-colored paper. Ethan, I was drowning that day. Not just in rain, but in darkness I thought would never end. You didn't just give me food. You reminded me that goodness still exists, that I was still worth saving. I'm going away to heal, but I wanted you to know, your kindness saved my life. Please accept this gift not as payment, but as a promise. A promise that the light you gave me will keep shining through you and Lily. Thank you for being proof that angels walk among us. Natasha Ethan's hands trembled as he read it twice, 3 times. His vision blurred. Mr. Deckard? The attorney's voice seemed far away. Are you all right? He wasn't all right. He was shattered and whole at the same time. Terrified and hopeful. Grateful and utterly overwhelmed. He started then stopped. I need to pick up my daughter from school. The attorney smiled. Of course, all the paperwork will be processed within the week. Your life is about to change, Mr. Deckard. We hope you're ready. The weeks that followed felt like living in someone else's dream. Ethan and Lily moved into a small but safe apartment where the roof didn't leak and the walls didn't groan when the wind blew. For the first time in 3 years, Lily had her own bedroom, painted lavender at her request, with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Daddy, it's like we're rich, she squealed, spinning in circles on the carpet that didn't have stains. We're not rich, baby. We're just taken care of. But even as he said it, guilt gnawed at him. He kept thinking about Natasha, wondering if she was okay, if she found peace. The grant was generous, almost too generous. It felt like holding something precious that didn't belong to him. He enrolled in a technical drafting program at the community college, something he dreamed of since high school but could never afford. His instructor, Mr. Chen, noticed his skill immediately. You've got a natural eye for this, Deckard. Where have you been hiding? Surviving, Ethan said simply. The other students were mostly younger, fresh out of high school, full of easy confidence that came from never wondering if they'd eat that day. Ethan felt ancient by comparison, even at 32, but he worked harder than any of them. He had to. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about honoring what Natasha had given him. Still, doubt crept in during the quiet moments. Late one night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat on their small balcony staring at the city lights. His phone buzzed, a text from his old coworker Marcus, from the warehouse job he left. Heard you got lucky. Must be nice. Ethan stared at the message. Lucky. Was that what this was? He thought about that morning in the diner, how his stomach had screamed at him not to give away his food, how he did it anyway, not because he was noble or heroic, but because he saw something in Natasha's eyes that mirrored his own darkest moments. If you've ever wondered whether small acts of kindness really matter, stay with us. This story is about to take a turn that will leave you speechless. Don't forget to comment below and tell us about a time someone's kindness changed your life. The next day, Ethan received another letter. His hands froze when he saw the return address, Rackham Estate Management. Inside was a photograph. It showed Natasha standing in a sun-drenched garden, her face peaceful, genuinely smiling. She looked healthy, whole, and on the back, in her handwriting, Ethan, I'm healing. Because of you, I get to try again. Thank you for reminding me what humanity looks like. And tears blurred his vision. She was okay. She was going to be okay. But then he noticed something else in the envelope. A business card for a prestigious photography gallery in the city, and a handwritten invitation. Opening night, after the storm. A collection by Natasha Rackham. You and Lily are my honored guests. The show was in 2 weeks. The gallery was nothing like Ethan expected. He imagined something cold and pretentious, full of people who looked at him and Lily like they wandered in from the wrong world. Instead, it was warm, intimate, filled with soft lighting and the gentle murmur of genuine appreciation. Lily clutched his hand, eyes wide as she took in the massive photographs lining the walls. Daddy, these are beautiful. They were. Each image captured a moment of raw humanity. A homeless man sharing his food with a dog, a nurse crying in a hospital stairwell, a child's hand reaching for a parent's. Pain and hope, frozen in time. And then Ethan saw it. Center of the gallery. The largest photograph, his breath caught. It was him. The image showed the diner from outside, rain streaking down the window. Through the glass, you could see Ethan's profile as he pushed his plate across the table towards someone just out of frame. The lighting, the composition, it captured something Ethan didn't even know existed in that moment. Grace, quiet heroism, humanity at its most vulnerable and most beautiful. The placard beneath read, "Sunshine in the storm, the moment that saved my life." "Mr. Deckard," he turned. A curator approached with a warm smile. "Miss Rackham wanted you to know, this piece has already been purchased by a private collector for $50,000, and she's insisting the full amount goes to you." Ethan's knees nearly buckled. "What? I can't." "You can and you will," a voice said from behind him. Ethan spun around. Natasha stood there, looking radiant and nervous at once. Healthy. Her eyes were clear, her smile genuine. She was the woman from the photograph, but she was also the woman from the diner, both versions of herself, integrated and whole. "Natasha," Ethan breathed. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I know I should have reached out sooner, but I needed to be strong enough to face you, to thank you properly." Lily tugged on Ethan's sleeve. "Daddy, is this the lady you gave your breakfast to?" Natasha's eyes filled with tears. She knelt down to Lily's level. "I am, and your daddy is the bravest, kindest man I've ever met." Lily beamed. "I know, he's my hero." Natasha looked up at Ethan, tears spilling over. "Mine too." The opening night ended in a blur of congratulations and overwhelming emotions. Ethan couldn't process it all, the money, the recognition, Natasha's gratitude. It felt too big, too unreal. But 3 days later, reality crashed back in. Ethan was leaving his drafting class when a man approached him in the parking lot. Mid-40s, expensive suit, cold eyes that assessed him like merchandise. "Ethan Deckard? Who's asking?" "My name is Vincent Kane. I'm Natasha Rackham's former business partner." The way he said her name made Ethan's skin crawl. "We need to talk about the money she gave you." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What about it?" "That trust fund she accessed, it was partially tied to investments we made together. Investments I have legal claim to." Vincent stepped closer, his smile predatory. "She had no right to give you nearly $250,000 without my approval. I don't know anything about your business arrangements." "I'm sure you don't. But ignorance isn't a defense. I've already filed a petition to freeze the grant. By next week, everything she gave you will be tied up in court. Your apartment, your school tuition, that gallery money, all of it." Ethan's hands clenched into fists. "You're lying." "Am I?" Vincent pulled out his phone, showed him an official-looking document. "My lawyers are very thorough, And while we sort this out, which could take years, you'll be right back where you started, struggling, barely surviving. He leaned in close. Unless you do something for me. What? Tell me where Natasha is. The recovery center, the city, anything. Give me a way to reach her, and I'll drop the petition. You keep everything. She'll never even know. Ethan's blood ran cold. This was the man Natasha had run from. The danger she escaped. Get away from me. Vincent's expression hardened. Wrong answer. Enjoy poverty, Mr. Deckard. Hope your daughter doesn't mind moving back to the slums. He walked away, leaving Ethan shaking with rage and fear. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He paced their small apartment, mind racing. If Vincent was telling the truth, everything would disappear. The apartment, the school, the stability Lily had finally found. They'd be right back to instant noodles and choosing between electricity and groceries. Lily appeared in her doorway, rubbing her eyes. Daddy? Are we in trouble again? Ethan's heart shattered. No, baby, go back to sleep. But he was lying, and they both knew it. The next morning, a legal notice arrived. Vincent hadn't been bluffing. The grant was frozen pending litigation. Ethan had 30 days before the eviction process began. He tried calling the law firm that had handled Natasha's grant, but they couldn't help. Attorney-client privilege meant they couldn't even confirm where Natasha was or how to reach her. Ethan was alone. Again. If you're wondering how Ethan gets out of this impossible situation, stay with me. Sometimes, the darkest moments reveal the brightest truths. Drop a comment and tell us, would you protect someone even if it cost you everything? Ethan spent 2 weeks in a fog of despair. He couldn't eat, couldn't focus in class. The walls of their apartment, walls that had finally felt like home, now felt like a prison counting down to his eviction. Then on a Tuesday morning, his phone rang from an unknown number. Mr. Deckard, this is Sarah Chen from Rackham Estate Management. We've been made aware of Vincent Kane's legal action. Ethan's heart pounded. Is Natasha okay? Does she know? She knows, and she's already taken action. Mr. Kane's claim has been thoroughly investigated by our legal team. It's completely fraudulent. What? Vincent Kane was never a legal business partner. He was Ms. Rackham's romantic partner who tried to insert himself into her professional life. When she refused to give him access to her trust, he became abusive and controlling. The investments he claims don't exist. Relief flooded through Ethan. So the grant is safe? More than safe. Ms. Rackham has filed restraining orders and criminal harassment charges against Mr. Kane. He'll be arrested by this afternoon. But there's something else. Sarah paused. Miss Rackham wants to speak with you. She's willing to break her communication silence if you're comfortable with it. Ethan's hands trembled. Yes, please. An hour later, his phone rang again. This time it was her. Ethan? Natasha's voice was stronger than he remembered, but still carried warmth. I'm so sorry. I never imagined Vincent would find you, would threaten you. It's not your fault. It is, but I want you to know something. When I heard what he did, what he tried to take from you, I realized something important. You protected me when I had nothing. Now it's my turn to protect you. Natasha, you've already done so much. I haven't done nearly enough. Ethan, I'm coming home. I'm testifying against Vincent, making sure he never hurts anyone again. And I'm establishing something permanent, a foundation in both our names, to help other people who are struggling, who just need someone to believe in them. Ethan's throat tightened. I don't know what to say. Say you'll help me. Say you'll be part of something bigger than both of us. Because that morning in the diner, you didn't just save my life, you reminded me what my life was supposed to be about. Tears rolled down Ethan's cheeks. Yes, of course, yes. Good. Because Ethan, the world needs more people like you, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure kindness gets the recognition it deserves. Vincent Kane was arrested 3 days later as he attempted to board a flight to the Cayman Islands with fraudulent documents claiming ownership of Natasha's assets. The news made headlines. Photographer's abusive ex arrested in financial fraud scheme. But the bigger story came 2 months later. The Deckard Rackham Foundation launched with a ceremony at the same gallery where Natasha's collection had premiered. Media outlets covered it extensively, drawn by the incredible story of a single act of kindness that had sparked something revolutionary. Ethan stood at the podium, uncomfortable in a suit Natasha had insisted on buying him, with Lily sitting in the front row, beaming at him. "I'm not good at speeches," he began, and the audience chuckled warmly. "But I want to tell you something important. The morning I met Natasha, I wasn't thinking about changing the world. I was just thinking about a scared woman who needed help." He glanced at Natasha, who stood to the side, eyes glistening. "I've learned that we don't need to do big things to make a difference. We just need to do the next right thing. Buy someone a meal, offer a jacket, see people when everyone else is looking away." His voice grew stronger. "This foundation exists because someone needed help, and someone else was willing to give what little they had. That's all any of us can do. But imagine if we all did it." The room erupted in applause. Over the next hour, Ethan and Natasha presented grants to 15 families, single parents, struggling students, domestic violence survivors. Each one received financial assistance, job training support, and most importantly, hope. One recipient, a young mother with 2 kids, approached Ethan afterward with tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means." But Ethan did know. He knew exactly what it meant. As the ceremony ended and guests mingled, Natasha pulled Ethan aside onto a quiet balcony overlooking the city. "You did this," she said softly. "All of this started because you chose kindness over convenience." Ethan shook his head. "We did this, together." She smiled. "Together." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and amber. Below them, the city hummed with millions of lives, millions of stories, millions of opportunities for one person to help another. "Ethan," Natasha said quietly, "that morning in the diner, I was planning to walk into traffic after I left. I decided there was nothing left worth living for." Ethan's breath caught. "But then you saw me, and you gave me more than food. You gave me a reason to try, one more day, then another, then another." She turned to him, eyes bright with tears and gratitude. "You saved my life, and now we get to save others." Ethan couldn't speak. He just nodded. Lily ran out onto the balcony, hugging both their legs. "Can we go celebrate with ice cream now?" They laughed, the tension breaking into something warm and light. "Ice cream sounds perfect," Natasha said, kneeling to Lily's level. "What flavor?" "All of them." As they headed inside together, Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Genuine, uncomplicated happiness. Not just survival, joy, purpose, connection. The broken man who'd given away his last meal had found something worth more than money. He found hope, and he learned to share it. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to Unbroken Truths. Your support helps us keep bringing stories that remind us compassion still matters in this world. Comment below and tell us about a time someone's kindness changed your day or your life. 1 year later, Ethan stood in the same diner where everything had changed. He asked the owner if he could host a small gathering there, and surprisingly, she agreed, especially after hearing the story. The booth where he sat that rainy morning was now marked with a small plaque, "Where Kindness Began." Lily was 7 now, thriving in a good school, making friends, dreaming big dreams that didn't include worry about where their next meal would come from. She sat coloring at a nearby table, completely absorbed in her artwork. Natasha arrived right on time, looking healthy and radiant. She fully recovered, rebuilt her career, and threw herself into the foundation's work with fierce dedication. But more than that, she became part of Ethan's life. A dear friend, a sister on purpose, someone who understood what it meant to be broken and rebuilt. "I can't believe it's been a year," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. "Best year of my life," Ethan admitted. "I graduated last month, got a job offer from an architecture firm." "Ethan, that's incredible," he smiled. "And the foundation just helped its 100th family. 100, Natasha. 100 lives changed." Her eyes filled with tears. "Because you gave away your breakfast. Because we both chose to try again." The waitress, Diane, the same one from that morning, approached their table. Her expression had softened over the past year, especially after learning what had happened in her diner. "Coffee?" she asked, almost gently. "Please," Ethan said. "And can we get 3 orders of the breakfast special?" Diane raised an eyebrow. 3? Ethan gestured toward the door, where a young man stood hesitantly, looking lost and desperate. His clothes were soaked from the rain that had started falling outside. His eyes held the same haunted look Natasha once had. I think our friend there could use some warmth and a hot meal, Ethan said quietly. Natasha's face broke into a brilliant smile. I'll get him a jacket. As they stood to welcome another stranger who needed help, Ethan felt the circle complete itself. The gift Natasha had given him wasn't just money or opportunity. It was the understanding that kindness multiplies, that one act of compassion can ripple outward into infinity. The young man looked up as they approached, surprise and hope flickering across his face. Hi, Ethan said gently. We saved you a seat. Come get warm. Lily looked up from her coloring and smiled. Are you giving someone your sunshine again, Daddy? We all are, sweetheart. We all are. Outside, the rain continued to fall. But inside the little diner where everything had changed, warmth and hope filled every corner. And somewhere in the city, hundreds of families were rebuilding their lives, one act of kindness at a time. Because Ethan Deckard had learned the most important truth of all, we're not defined by what we have, but by what we're willing to give when we have almost nothing. And the truth, it changes everything. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness still matters in this world, please like, share, and subscribe to Unbroken Truths. Drop a comment and tell us about a time you helped someone or someone helped you. Your stories inspire us to keep sharing hope. Thank you for being part of our community. Until next time, keep shining your light.